This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning. But we also take a look at some of the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 2nd of July 2019, and I am 2M.
And I am GK, sitting in for Miss K.
I am 2J, and again, in case you missed it, this is Winning Headlines. Let's take a look at today's headlines.
So the Standard, Bob was ready for last call.
Whoa.
In the Star, fare thee well, Bob Collymore.
Yes.
And then in the Daily Nation,
Yes.
Death of a Titan.
I think it's appropriate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
before we start,
Yes.
let me give you our three-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines. We ask ourselves, is it speculative or topical? We ask ourselves, is it repetitive or is it groundbreaking and earth-shattering? And finally, we ask ourselves, is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? However, because it's Bob, I think we should...
I think we just keep them.
Yeah, no, I think it's appropriate that all the headlines pay tribute to him today. I think if we were to go through the criteria, I would say a majority of them do tick the most positive side of our criteria.
Absolutely. I mean, I agree with the nation. Man is a titan. I don't think there is any company this side of the Sahara that takes 63 billion shillings in net profit every single year.
This is true, and a titan is someone who's excelling at the very best of what they do.
Absolutely.
The industry.
That's so true.
I was looking at the market cap of Safaricom. It's about a trillion shillings. That's unheard of. It's probably almost half our budget.
And this is a man who wasn't even born in Kenya, but so perfectly and aptly took on the attributes of what a Kenyan is.
Yes.
I actually didn't even know he wasn't Kenyan, because when I see him, I think the way he behaves, he took on a Kenyan wife. He did great things for children, for women. This is what a Kenyan is.
I mean, he even did music videos with some of our artists here.
I must point out, guys, last week you guys did college dropouts and you missed Bob Collymore.
I know.
So Bob Collymore couldn't afford to go to university, and the University of Warwick in England didn't give him a scholarship. So he actually entered Vodacom at a very entry-level
as a
position.
clerk.
So this is, I mean, a testament to the man, a titan, and also a testament to what Safaricom has become, right?
Absolutely.
It's big.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. It is unfortunate we missed him as a college dropout, because he does epitomize the success that a college dropout could have. If you're saying he entered Vodafone at an entry level, and we know Safaricom is Vodafone's most successful subsidiary, and he climbed the ranks all the way to the top to be CEO of Safaricom. It's incredible.
And brought jazz to Kenya, isn't it? And he made it cheaper for students to be able to attend these concerts. So he was all-round top guy.
It's a lesson to Kenyans. I mean, every morning you wake up, Kenyans are complaining, oh, government this, government that. But do you know what Bob said? I was watching one of his interviews, and he said that we don't realize what kind of country we have. And we probably have been 20 steps ahead if we did realize the potential that we had. You know, increasing the profit base and whatever, the books of Safaricom to whatever degree he increased it to is testament to what Kenya could be.
Okay, so which of the Bob Collymores do we like?
Nation.
I will say about the Standard. Bob was ready for last call. I think that was a bit tasteless. I know they're trying to create the link between Safaricom and the phone call, but I think that the man
if you're mad at that, wait for the cartoons.
Oh gosh. So I think, can I ask that we put this, we're not tossing today, out of respect, but I think we'll put this not in the parking bay, but it has been
So there we have it. We have our winning headline from the Daily Nation. Death of a Titan.
Fantastic.
And so we move to our
cartoons.
Political pieces that we call cartoons. We also have a 3-part criteria that we use. We ask ourselves, is the cartoon humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And finally, is it effective or just plain
lazy?
And again, the cartoons today are more Bob Collymore.
So we have Gado with a big pair.
Big pair of shoes. I think he's saying a big pair of shoes to fill. And I mean, I agree with him. I think everybody's paying tribute to Gado. Bob Collymore.
But I think that if you're going to pay tribute, that this is not how you do it. I think that what the Daily Nation did with their headline was fantastic. It's striking, it's captivating, but it's a bit lazy. There's more for us to say about Bob Collymore than him just being a man who has, who's left big shoes to fill. And I think that begs a question that I wanted to ask earlier. there's a quote that says, if someone thinks of something that reminds them of you, what would it be? So the question is, if Bob Collymore was to ask us, what do we remember about him? Of course, he has leaving big shoes to fill, but I think that's such a small...
Absolutely, because he's looking at post. You're not looking pre.
Exactly, yeah. He has a legacy that he's...
Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, this is a good one. Victor Ndula.
Oh my God.
And you have Bob Collymore in heaven. So at least we know he has made it, eh? And you see what? A server?
Yes, a server, and they say cloud hosting services. It's in the clouds.
Yeah. And St. Peter's at the gate has a MacBook of some kind.
Would you say the Book of Life?
And St. Peter has a Book of Life, but now St. Peter's going digital, man. He's he has a laptop, and I don't know what, maybe these are servers.
So there's many things we thought about, but there's something that's just struck me. Maybe Ndula is telling us that Collymore has taken that titanness that he has, he's taken it from earth and he's taken it to heaven. So much so that he's improved the way that heaven operates.
That he's so much larger than life.
Exactly.
I like that.
That the servers are domiciled near heaven.
I like that.
Because of him.
Because of him. And St. Peter is using the same servers and a computer to see the Book of Life.
I think this is a good one.
Good job, Victor.
I think let's compare it to Ozone.
Yeah.
Ozone. 2J's favorite cartoonist. So you have a phone with some bars, Safaricom looking bars, network bars. And it says, leaving a strong legacy. And off the last bar, he's sort of flying off and waving.
Yeah, and he's got angel wings.
Yeah.
Living
I
a
thought
strong
it was
legacy.
funny. I mean, compared to where Safaricom began, when, you had to huddle under...
Yes.
And you're holding your phone up looking
to look for network. And now in the most remote spaces in Kenya, you can sort of make a phone call.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah.
Okay, you've just changed my mind. There was a lot of horrible things that I was going to say in relation to Ozone's cartoon, but you have changed my mind when we think about the question.
And nobody here has managed to change your mind, eh?
Okay, but then if we're going to say between these two,
I still like Ndula's.
I do prefer the Ndula one.
I like Ndula.
Okay, so winning cartoon there is fun.
Daily Nation.
Ndula. All right, no tossing today.
Yeah, so what is our final thought?
And now, our final
Are you
thought.
ready to witness greatness? This is what he does.
I've been eager to sit here and listen.
And now our final thought. And it's inspired by a book entitled Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And yesterday, guys, I asked you a question. Do you think Christianity stopped the development of Africa? And when I read Chinua Achebe, and I've read this book a couple of times, I came across this man called Okonkwo. And in my view, Okonkwo had a crisis of identity. He wanted to portray himself as a masculine man. And when he killed this man, this young boy, Ikemefuna, and because there was a girl who was taken as a virgin, and he was meant to be the sacrifice. But by the time Ikemefuna was being killed by Okonkwo, he was already living with them, and Okonkwo took him as his son. But at the point where he killed him, there was, I think, some conflict of interest. And not conflict of interest, there was a conflict of identity. This time, he's looking at the person he's killing as his son. But yet, because this strong culture that he was living in the Igbo tribe, made him wanted to be seen. He wanted to be seen as a man and as perceived in a certain way. But when Christianity came, and this is my feeling, it was a way out for Africans out of a rigid savagery system. And I'm going to say that not to sound insensitive. And when you compare that to this man called Goge wa Thiong'o, and I gave the 4 categorization yesterday. There was the influencer, there were the adapters, there were the conservatists, and there was the collaborators. You have Shege, who was a conservatist, and you have Okonkwo, who was who was also a conservatist.
Yeah.
But within them, there was this
conflict of identity. Yeah, and that's one of the themes that is explored in the book.
Yes.
So this is actually I think it is the first book that is part of the African Writers series that we mentioned yesterday.
Yeah.
Written in 1958. So it is a classical.
Which also is the year that Bob Collymore
was born. That's so true.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's a nice connection.
Yeah.
So it's a classical African novel about how colonialism impacted and undermined traditional African culture.
Yes.
And it is called the most read African book in the world, which I think is quite interesting.
I saw that.
Very special.
Yes.
60-something years later.
Yeah.
So the book tells the story of Okonkwo and how things indeed do fall apart in his life.
Yeah.
He's a respected leader of his community. He's very wealthy. He's a wrestler at the age of 18.
Yeah.
But he struggles with wanting to avoid or to run away from who his father was. So his father was known to be lazy and a coward, and he spends his entire life running away from that. So the story starts with him being shaken up by an accidental murder, which is where we meet Ikefu.
Ikemefuna.
I'm from East Africa, not West Africa. And so you have all these like circumstances that he goes through.
Yes.
But I think what I found really interesting in the book is how it signifies the destruction of an entire way of life for these African people. And it shows the obliteration of the ties that bound them together.
Yeah.
So, hold on.
Yeah.
We have the book today, and there's a quote that I'd want to read, which speaks about the title.
Yeah.
And he says, "The white man is very clever. He came quietly and peaceably with his religion.
Yes.
We were amused at his foolishness and allowed him to stay.
Yes.
Now he has won our brothers, and our clan can no longer act as one.
Yes.
He has put a knife on the things that held us together, and we have fallen apart."
Yes.
And what Achebe talks about in the book is he has this very interesting portrayal of both the positive and negative aspects of the missionary activities.
Yes.
So in the book he talks about how in the traditional tribes, possibly it's something like having a twin was seen as a curse, and you know, you'd have to throw them off into the bush.
Absolutely.
But when the missionaries came into Nigeria, they became this like safe haven for the people who didn't want to be bound by those cultural rigidities.
So they would take in the twins.
Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
And so yes, he shows that they provided an outlet for discontent, but it also begins to show the unravelings of the Igbo people and how they failed to preserve their own culture and they started to lose dignity and self-respect for themselves. So it's this conflict in, do I want freedom or do I want to stay in my tradition?
Yeah, and again, like yesterday, I think the main question here is that there was something very compelling about Christianity. And the Igbo people, just like the Kikuyus in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's book, there was something that drew them to Christianity. And I think if we put the traditional cultural values that the Igbo had and the Kikuyus had, maybe there was a severity in it. There was, you must have a sacrifice to the gods. There was always a very
there was a response for an action.
Exactly. And maybe Christianity was bringing redemption, was bringing a compassion to these people. That there was a second chance, through Christ. And I feel like this is a story we see sometimes with Okonkwo. He was unable to reconcile that people were being drawn into the European missionary way.
Absolutely.
Yet the European missionaries came with trade. So if you were not a great farmer, you were at least able to buy the things that you couldn't grow. There was some form of justice. So the arbiter wasn't just the head of the clan, right? And so you see a theme through the book where rank and title and wealth are really crucial things. And Okonkwo clings to these things, and he cannot do without them. And in the end,
it becomes his downfall.
It becomes his downfall. And actually, at the very beginning, they describe his father as being very poor and being without title. And so he grows hating his father and lives his whole life not wanting to be like his father. And I think the things fall apart is a testament to even what happens today. We cling to certain things, whether it's social media, whether it's competition in business, whatever it is in our daily lives, but we're always trying to portray this outer
that I am better, I am bigger,
I am perfect and whatnot. Yet things are sort of falling apart. Internally, right? Because we're refusing to reconcile. But the other thing that I sort of saw was how traditions and customs, just like in Ngugi wa Thiong'o's books, were very strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he says that European missionaries have come and have, broken those traditions and customs.
Yeah.
And we see that even today, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't have those anymore.
No, we don't.
Absolutely.
We've become a very westernized culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but then there are things we can cling to, I think, in the traditional sense.
Yes.
That we can anymore.
It's funny you say that, because I was thinking things fall apart. Things do not just fall apart because the white man came with religion and extractionist methods. They also did fall apart because in the African culture itself, maybe we're not as visionary. Now, Ngugi wa Thiong'o talks about Shege, the father of Wayaki. But Shege was visionary in the sense that, yes, he knew the white man needed to be defeated. But the method of defeating the white man, according to Shege, was not just to fight. It was to gather the methods of the white man and not inculcate them, but use them against himself. But if you talk to Okonkwo, the family unit, the reason he did not take his father as that, and it's because of the title, the father was a nobody. And he wanted to fight this white man with absolute rage. And, you know, I think what he's also telling us is the methods of falling apart. We shouldn't just affiliate them to the colonizers, but there was also something within ourselves. And Ngugi wa Thiong'o, in my view, taught us this: we needed to be tempered and to realize, yes, the white man has symbols of power. He has the clothes, he has the Bible, he has the methods of extraction that are probably superior to our own. But at the same time, we also, and that's why Wayaki went to build schools, his own version of schools.
For instance, Chinua also, in his storytelling, is telling us that Africans had a way of life before European missionaries.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And so that's why I'm saying that, the traditions are strong. And just because the European missionary came, that's what Okonkwo stands for something. He says that there was a way of life before these people. And I think we should also remember that.
Yes, we should. And I think one of the most powerful tools that he uses in the book, it's a very final chapter. So the entire book takes the perspective of the African telling the story, which was in contrast to books like Heart of Darkness, which were told through the European perspective. But in the last chapter, Achebe takes the point of view of the Muzungu. And he talks about, so we know at the end of the story that Okonkwo hangs himself. And so he talks at the end where the district commissioner comes and says, oh, this would be a fantastic story for me to tell the foreigners. They would love it, He says he reduces the story to an anecdote of the European history of conquest. And he says, oh, I know exactly what title I'm going to give this book. And it's so sad. He says that he's going to call the book The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger. And so Okonkwo's story, as we've gone through the entire book, telling the story of this man who's full of pride and, he doesn't like femininity, he likes this masculine thing. In the end, he's just reduced to a story that's going to be sold to the Europeans.
About primitive Africans.
Which I think was a very powerful tool. And one of the interesting things was, in the book, he puts on this very masculine facade. And he doesn't like his son because he finds him to be effeminate. But in the book, in Igbo society, committing suicide is seen as a feminine thing. And so it's girly. In the end, all these masculine things that he was fighting for, the way that he chooses to, leave the earth, is in a very feminine way.
Feminine way, absolutely. So he got what he was trying so hard to fight against.
But I still think it's a testament to this identity issue that we have. He was really fighting for this traditional thing, and then the people who in the end gave him the burial that he deserved were the Europeans. There's a lot of contradictions in his life.
I totally agree. But do you guys see some similarity between this man called Joshua in Ngugi wa Thiong'o?
You really liked Ngugi wa Thiong'o. It's gone back. It's a mixed final thought.
But by the time Muthoni said she's going to go through the cut, you remember Joshua disowned Muthoni. And I drew parallels to Okonkwo killing Ikemefuna, I know deep down there is a way you can see they were conflicted within themselves.
And that conflict happens in identity. And I think if there's one one thing I would like to leave the audience with is the fact that as much as Okonkwo was fighting to hide from his father, who was nameless and didn't have wealth, I think that we can relate that to the hustlers, and there's no shame in that whatsoever. Because I think in Africa, I think just even general in society, we're constantly fighting, as you said, to be viewed as something that we are not.
Yes, you're the son of one.
You're exactly. Who's your father? Who's your, you know, what do they do? And I think there's no shame in being a nobody. There's no shame in rising through the ranks and finding success in just being a hustler and being, you know, a person who wants to slog.
And the warning to the political dynasties that things can fall apart.
Things can fall apart
if there's no unity, right? That's very true.
When the center no longer holds, everything will fall apart.
So, all right. Thank you for your final thoughts. So on a day when we had a winning headline from the Daily Nation with the death of a titan, and a winning cartoon
also from the Daily Nation.
Yes, with Victor Ndula. If you have a good evening, see you tomorrow.
You did a great job.
Thank you.